Hi everybody, this is Dr. Sean Talbot, Monavie's Chief Science Officer, and thanks for joining me for another edition of From the Lab. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the frequently asked questions we're getting about our revolutionary View device that's out in North America right now. You know, I was just in Europe and we traveled around to 6 different cities, and we were talking about antioxidants, we were talking about acai, we were talking about weight loss, we talked about energy, we really talked about all of the different products that we have in the Monavie family. And we also introduced just a little bit of the story of the View device, how we're excited about how it can change the story of antioxidant nutrition by giving people a score and letting them see where they are right now and how they can improve their score with Monavie products, and also with healthy diet and eating more fruits and vegetables and reducing stress and reducing exposure to free radicals and those sorts of things. But what I wanted to do today is talk about some of the questions that we're getting. This whole episode of From the Lab today is going to be about answering those frequently asked questions about the View device. So we collated a couple of them on this sheet, and I'm just going to read them off and then do my best to try to answer those questions for you so you can get a perspective for what other people are anticipating out there in the world. So first View FAQ. How does the machine actually work? Now this can be a very complicated answer actually, because you look at this device and it doesn't look very complicated. You know, to be quite honest, it looks very simple. But the technology that's built into this device in terms of how it works and how it measures antioxidants is actually fairly complicated. It was the subject of a very high-level article in the Journal of Biophotonics in July of 2012. And so that is one of the top-tier academic physics journals that studies this area of biophotonics, which is basically the area or the part of science that uses light, studies how to use light to measure biology. And this particular article, of course, looked at using visible light, a white light, shown into skin, and how that can measure antioxidant concentration. That's the technology that's built into this device. And the way it works is we use a visible light, so basically the light from a light bulb, right? A full spectrum white light is shown into the skin, using that as a target tissue. And what happens to that light is a certain amount of it is absorbed by the antioxidants. So a certain amount is absorbed by carotenoids, a certain amount is absorbed by flavonoids, and then a certain amount is reflected back. So of that light that comes reflecting back into the detectors that are built into the View device, they're measured in different ways. The carotenoid signal is measured by a technique called reflectance. And the flavonoid signal is measured by a technique called fluorescence. And those two measurements, reflectance and fluorescence, are sort of averaged together to give it one overall score. You'll get a numerical score if it's a life score, and you'll get a color score if it's a quick scan. And so that score is indicative of the overall concentration of those two classes of antioxidants. Overall concentration of carotenoids, overall concentration of flavonoids. And so that's the technology. If you want to read the technology and how how the physicists have developed this, you can read that Journal of Biophotonics article. You can also read either of the 2 patents that are filed on the measurement of carotenoids with reflectance or the measurement of flavonoids with fluorescence. It's really heavy-duty science. Or you can, of course, go to the Monavie website and get a sort of a streamlined explanation about how this works, how it's different from other sorts of measurements. You know, before this measurement, what we needed to do to get an indication of somebody's antioxidant level is take a serum sample, a blood sample, or a saliva sample, or a urine sample, or sometimes a punch biopsy, an actual tissue sample, and measure that. Now with this, we can just get a measurement right from your fingertip that's reproducible and accurate and can show change over time. It's really all the things that you would want as a researcher. Non-invasive, quick, easy, inexpensive, all those sorts of things. So we think it's really going to change the way people talk about and people understand antioxidant nutrition in general. So that's a little bit about how it works. One of the other questions we have is, what are the units being measured when you get a life score? Or how does that color correspond when you're getting a quick scan? The units that come back are not, people will say, what are those units exactly? Are they milligrams? There's got to be some sort of a unit associated with that. And what we've done is, because we know the amount of light that's going in, and we know the amount of light that's being reflected back or fluoresced back, we do sort of a ratio, right? We make a scale to say, here's the concentration of what we know went in, here's the concentration of what we know went out, and we know that concentration is indicative of how many antioxidants you have in that tissue. And what I want people to think about is, where am I right now? And what can I do to get my number to a higher or a healthier or a more protective level? And there's some very standard things you can do. You can eat a diet that's high in brightly colored fruits and vegetables. You can avoid those sources of free radicals that will sap your body's antioxidant stores. You can be more physically active. You can get 8 hours of sleep. You can reduce stress. You can do all of those things that we know are healthy for us. They will increase your score because they're protecting your body in different ways, and they're taking away sources of draining your antioxidant stores. So you can do all those kinds of things, including you can be using our Monavie products. We know that over time that your score will go up, and we know that because the concentration of the antioxidants in your tissue and therefore in the rest of your body are going up. We feel so strongly about that we certify these products, and we stand behind that with a guarantee, a performance guarantee, that if your score doesn't go up, that you can get your money back. So, this is a very important consideration, that number is something real. It's not just something that we made up. It's really based on the ratios of the light going in, the light coming out, and the knowledge that is reflective of the concentration of those antioxidants in your skin. And then it's converted into either that numerical score or that color score for you. Why do different ethnicities score higher? This is an interesting point, because different people are going to have different baseline scores. As I just said a few minutes ago, you shouldn't try to compare your score to your friend's score. Your score is really based on the unique exposures that you have. What sorts of free radicals are you exposed to? What's your ability to absorb certain antioxidants? You might have somebody who's really good, for genetic reasons, at absorbing flavonoids or absorbing carotenoids. And so let's say you start at green. You might be able to go up to blue, you might even be able to go up to purple, but we shouldn't think that everybody, even if they're taking Monavie products every single day, we shouldn't think that everybody will get up to purple. We want everyone to get up to their maximal individual level. And ethnicity is one piece of that. Different ethnic categories may have different exposures. They may have different ability to absorb and retain those antioxidants. They also have different pigments in their skin, and so that's going to give them a different baseline. So an African American might scan at a different baseline than a Hispanic, and that they might score at a different baseline than a Caucasian, and they might score at a different baseline than somebody of Asian descent. So you really need to consider all of those different factors and really think of somebody not as just a score, but as that score being one aspect of that person's overall exposure and overall ability to go from where they are now, baseline score, to someplace better. So what I like to tell people is that wherever they are now, if they can endeavor to do whatever is possible to get up to the next color level, that's a good goal to set for yourself. And I've even set it for myself. I'm a professional nutritionist. I've been doing this, talking about antioxidants and writing about them and researching them for 20 years, basically my whole career. And I find myself stuck at green. I'm in the green range, and I want to be in the blue range. So that encourages me, knowing where I am, knowing that I'm right on the cusp of green to blue. It makes me more compliant with my Monavie regimen. It makes me less likely to forget to drink my juice. It makes me more likely to choose brightly colored fruits and vegetables whenever I can. It makes me more likely to avoid sources of free radicals in the environment. Like, these are all things that I know intellectually, and because I've studied them and I've heard them before and I've read about them just like you have. But knowing that score really changes my behavior and makes me more likely to do those kinds of things, actually act on them instead of just think about them. And that's what the secret is, that we need to act on those healthy behaviors, and the View is a great way to encourage us to do that. So what else do we have? Smokers. Smokers can actually sometimes score higher on the view device than you think they might. Let's think about that for a second. Smoking is a huge source of free radical damage in the body. Every puff of a cigarette has approximately 100 trillion free radicals in every single puff. So think about that. Those free radicals come into your lungs, they get transferred out into your bloodstream, they basically go then and interact with and damage virtually every tissue in your body. So you would automatically think that that smoker would be red, would have a very, very low score because of their constant exposure to these free radicals. But sometimes we see these smokers scoring higher than you might expect. And one reason for that might be that when they smoke, the nicotine stains on their fingers can change their baseline score. This is a light wave that we're using, as I explained before. We're shining light, we're measuring reflected light and fluorescent light back into the detector. And so if you have some sort of a discoloration in the area that's being scanned, let's say you have a yellow nicotine stain there. Let's say you have some paint. Let's say you have some nail polish, not on your nail, but you have it on the belly of your finger. Any sort of discoloration there will affect the measurement, and I don't see that as a drawback of the technology at all. It's just the nature of what we're measuring. We're using light, we're measuring reflected light back. Anything that interferes with that ability to reflect and measure is going to affect the score. It's not a drawback of the technology. You can say the same thing for any sort of health indication out there. Let's say I was going to take a blood pressure measurement on myself right now. If I went like this before I took the blood pressure measurement, that's going to affect the reading. If I were going to get a cholesterol measurement in my blood, if I ate bacon and eggs the morning before that or an hour before, it's going to affect the measurement. If I have a body fat machine sitting in front of me here in my office, if I wet the bottom of my feet or I stood on the machine with sweaty feet, that's going to affect the measurement. So there are all kinds of sort of intervening factors that can interfere with some of our measurements. So I say all of that because what you want to be really careful about when you make a view measurement, whether it's a quick scan or a life score, you want to make sure there's some consistency there. Are you always measuring the same finger? If you're a smoker with that nicotine stain on your index finger, you might want to use the other hand and then always be scanning that finger. If you have somebody who has a child, for instance, and they have a small finger that doesn't fully cover that little bubble inside the machine, you're going to get scattered light. So you might want to use their thumb and then always use their thumb so that they're consistent. If you're scanning your finger like normal, you want to make sure you're getting that the bubble where the measurement comes right in the belly of your finger, not on the side, not on the tip, not on the end. You really want to have that consistency if you want to be able to measure the benefits of these products over time. It's just the nature of making an accurate measurement. It's a lot of times we joke around in research that if it's garbage in, it's going to be garbage out. Unless you have some controls around what you're measuring, there's going to be so much variation that you really have garbage data and you're not going to be able to track yourself accurately or your customers, and you're not going to be able to use it as the effective education tool that we know that it can be. So those are some issues that we need to always keep in mind. One question we get a lot is, why is the guarantee period 60 days? When the View first came out and we first started talking about it, we'd bring it out to meetings and talk to people about it and how we thought it was going to be an interesting technology to educate people and motivate people and change their behavior. And you'd get people who would scan and get a particular score, and maybe not like that score, maybe think that they should be higher or they wanted to be higher, and they would literally go outside of the room, down the hallway, drink a whole bunch of juice, come back in and score again, and they'd say, my score is the same. This machine obviously can't be working because I just drank a half a bottle of juice and my score didn't go up. And what I had to explain to them is that their antioxidant levels in their blood probably would go up very quickly if they did that. We've done those kinds of studies, and we show that the bioavailability of these products is superior to lots of things out there, and the antioxidant level does go up in the blood. But we're measuring the tissue. and the tissue takes a while to accumulate those antioxidants. There's a process of, getting it into the body and absorbing it and transporting it and then getting it delivered to that tissue, and over time it has to build up in the tissue. So this measurement is more reflective of what's happening to your body over the course of 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And so in our studies we really see that those tissue saturation levels starting to plateau out around 6 to 8 weeks. So that's why we set that 8-week time frame for our View certified products, for our guarantee, because we want people to be able to get up to those levels, see their numbers changing, see them start to plateau out, so that we can say to them, look, this is actually a much more important measurement than just a blood measurement, which can fluctuate from day to day, which can fluctuate from dose to dose. We want to show you an overall perspective for what that tissue is seeing over time, because that's more indicative of an overall health effect. We don't want you to have antioxidants one day and then not the next day. We want to really encourage people to have that saturation effect where we're really filling up those tissues so that we can have that protective effect throughout the entire body. So that's why we make it out to that 60-day period. And then, one question that we get a lot is, why does my score vary from day to day? If I go and I scan Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, there's some fluctuation. I might be 30,000 today, and I might be 31,000 tomorrow, and I might be 29,000 the next day. Why does it change like that? Well, with any of these sort of scientific instruments, there is some variation. In the studies that we've done, we see that the variation of the View device is around 10 to 12% when we're doing it in a controlled environment. But now think about what happens in the real world. Think about, did you get your finger in there just the right way, or was it maybe to the side? Was your finger cleaned off all the way? Did you have some sort of debris there? Were your fingers moist one day and dry the next day? That's going to introduce a little bit of variation. Even if we look at measurements that have been around for 10 or 20 or 30 years, blood pressure measurements, blood sugar measurements, blood cholesterol measurements, those are all very well accepted in the medical community and very well accepted in the scientific community. And those kinds of measurements vary about the same degree, around 10 to 15% measurement to measurement, just by the nature of biological variation. So you could literally sit down and I could take 5 tubes of blood from you, and we could measure cholesterol in each one of those tubes. Your cholesterol level hasn't changed from one tube to the next tube, but the value in each of those cholesterol analyses might be 10% difference from each other, just because of the nature of the scientific method. It's just how it is. I wish it could be 100% the same every single time, but that's the way it is. And we're right in there in terms of this View device being about the same level of variability. But like I said before, you have to make sure that you're getting those consistent measurements. The same finger, the same placement, the same conditions, and the more you're able to control that kind of stuff, the better baseline data you'll get and the better ability to track yourself over time. So I don't want people to freak out if they see that you're 30,000 today and you're a little bit up from that or a little bit down from that day to day. What you want to look at is over time. If you were able to draw a time curve from your baseline value to your value 8 weeks later or 4 weeks later, you'll see a trend line that's going up, and you have to not think about, well, it was a little up, a little down, a little up, a little down. The overall trend is to a healthier area, to a higher antioxidant score. So that's a good thing. Some of the tips I've already, we have a list of some of the tips here. I mentioned about finger placement. I mentioned about cleaning the finger. I mentioned about those things that can sort of irritate or interfere with the ability to transfer the light in and out of that tissue. But we also have to think about the lens itself. If you're at a meeting and there's several hundred people there who are excited to get their antioxidant score, and you've got person after person after person just coming up there and putting their finger into this device, you want to make sure that you're cleaning the lens as well. Fingerprints and oil and all that kind of stuff can get on there, and that can interfere with the transmission and the reception of those transmitted and reflected lights. So all of these kinds of things we have to think about. We have to accept a little bit of variation, because that's what comes with these scientific tools. But if we look at the science, if we look at the patents, if we look at the publications, if we look at the performance of MonaV products, over the course of several weeks, what we're seeing over and over and over again is that we've got a family of bioavailable products with a whole antioxidant network that is absorbed and transported and deposited in that tissue, and we can measure that effect as a way to get people to think about antioxidants in a different way. And I think that's important because you can't always feel those antioxidants. You can't feel that free radical from the sunlight. You can't feel that reactive oxygen molecule that you just breathed in from the exhaust pipe that went speeding by you on the road. You can't feel that doing cellular damage until maybe it's too late and you have some serious tissue damage going on. This View device lets us talk about it and educate it in a different way, to be able to say, here's your score, here's your color, this is what you can do to improve your health and improve your protection. And it really takes that idea of antioxidant nutrition from the back of the mind right to the front of the mind, where someone's going to actually do something. They're going to act on it now. They're going to take their juice. They're going to eat their fruits and vegetables. They're going to, avoid French fries and soda maybe more than they did before, because they know that that's taking a toll on their body. I really have a lot of high hopes for this View device and what it can do. And I hope that answering some of these questions helps put it in the proper perspective for you about the real potential of this device here at Monavie. So continue sending in your questions. We're going to continue doing these frequently asked questions episodes about our products, about our devices, about how the products all fit together, and about some of the new products that are coming in just a few weeks' time. So join me next time on From the Lab. This is Dr. Sean Talbot. Thanks a lot.